Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the channel map for September of 2020. It is currently the 1st of September. We're getting things done the right way, right out the gate, telling you guys about the plans for the channel and the content that you've come to know and love from yours truly. So let's get into it. I should first recap month of August. It was a very busy, hectic month in many ways. Had the hardware upgrades and several other fun notes in real life, and eventually settled on just being able to record and stream at a fairly regular pace. And this led to a huge amount of work being done on HYDRA and some video-related stuff, both on another channel of mine, as well as the main one that this video is being published to. So we'll go through all of those. The first thing that I should mention, I think, is the massive amount of HYDRA changes. This is something that has been surprising to a lot of people, and honestly, surprising a little bit to myself. A lot of them were sort of in the workings, in the making already before any particular moment. And it's just that we finally got a chance to add all of the new units and slap together everything else that we might need. In large part due to the fact that this month we also started the full toilet campaign crap development, where I selected a campaign that would be built off of the HYDRA game state. This resulted in a Veek who said he was going to help me with my campaign, not only help me with my campaign, but also help me with HYDRA, because HYDRA is a big part of that campaign because it's built on that game state. And since I had another person pretty regularly, I would say for the majority of August, being there with me, either on stream or off stream after the fact, working to add new features and to smooth out issues with the plugin, this let us get a lot of work done in a relatively short amount of time. But then there was some stuff that was, long in the making, which was more tech tree rearrangements and stuff. Things that resulted in more accessibility for different production structures and different tech routes and different unit routes, and generally things that sort of promote the idea of scouting, but also of understanding, your allies' tech path and knowing what their strengths are, and being able to say, hey, this is actually a team-focused game state where, my teammate can go, fast air and I can go fast mech, and then maybe we have a third teammate that can go just a bio ball or something. The idea that you can split all this stuff up initially in the early stages of the game before deciding how to mix and match, I think is quite exciting and has led to some really interesting early games for the small number of fraud nights that we've successfully been able to hold for testing this sort of stuff with multiplayer in mind. And even with the AI changes, now that they're a little bit closer to actually using the new game state tools, because updating them was a mammoth task in and of itself and still is not completely done, it was really nice to see stuff like that go down. So I'm very pleased with how that has been, generally speaking. So what you may notice about HYDRA as it continues is that we have adopted a bit of a different shipment philosophy as well. This is another thing that happened, is we organized the various repositories from GitHub to GitLab first, migrating it over to the new service because of the advantages of that service. But also after that, we ended up getting some work done on the organization of the repos themselves. We made a separate repo for development so that we can handle that ourselves and, push modified EXEs and stuff while testing things. And then we made we retained the similar repo for downloading the actual release files. And there's a few reasons for this, but one of them is definitely that it allows us to ship more substantial changes in a more large-scale patch environment, where you'll see a patch and then 10 days another patch. And I'm not sure how many days will pass between the next significant patch, but after that we have these small sub patches where we just simply add a couple of things here and there. And that to me seems like a good method. We've been able to continuously use that to our benefit. So it's definitely been helpful for organization. It's been helpful for getting you guys the end result that we actually want to get to. And generally speaking, I feel like there's a few cases where I maybe have pulled the trigger a little too much and a little too quickly in terms of when I release the patch, but even after that, fixing up whatever bugs come up as a result of that, not really that difficult to do, and that's almost what you would expect out of HYDRA's development. So while I would like to eventually buck the trend and start releasing stable patches that I don't have to do anything to in the immediate future after releasing them, you guys know what's going on here. You guys know how things are. So for now, that's just probably how it will stay, if I had to guess. But that's been the HYDRA changes, so that's been a bit of a recap. I did mention again that there was some Deliverance development in the month of August. That is indeed the case. We have a first map in a really good state as far as its layout goes. We kind of know what kind of game flow there's going to be. We have a rough outline of its script. We started working on an outline of the second mission's briefing and the second mission's layout itself, the actual map file. And so we're getting there. It's slow goings. We've also really, I think, nailed down the specifics regarding the project's identity. So we know what we're actually going to be doing. We know what we're going to be adding. We know what we're going to be removing in terms of tech tree options and game state stuff. And surprisingly enough, we're able to preserve all of the new units from HYDRA while replacing only vanilla units in some capacity or another because of wanting to have our own factions in play as opposed to the default ones, like, the faction-specific units that you're used to, like medics and Valkyries and Dark Templar, Dark Archons, Corsairs, that sort of thing. So we won't have to worry about that at the very least. But it does mean that there's a very different flavor to Deliverance than even to regular HYDRA. But suffice it to say, it will definitely be a very strong production once we're done with it. And it's pretty hard to not be better than every other campaign that has been released because, unfortunately, every other campaign is shit. But you could expect something of objective quality from us in a couple months, actually, in 2 months, when I finish put the finishing touches on Deliverance and get it out there. With, of course, the help of Veek, the help of Highquare, the help of DF, and everybody else who decides to man mode and pop in and do some work with us. So that's pretty cool. Very exciting. The end of days are upon us for Brood War, but we can go out with a bang, I think. And that's fine. That's reasonable. So you may hear the fan, and by may I mean definitely you have heard the fan in the background. That is not my air conditioner. That is my computer fan. I have actually swapped out for aftermarket cooling in both the case fans and, of course, the CPU heatsink fan. And they're all the Be Quiet brand, but for some reason they are very loud. And I don't know why. I think maybe this case's thermals are just shit. And maybe I also have to configure some more stuff in BIOS. I put them all on smart mode, but apparently smart mode means be really noisy. So fuck that. When there's no load, at the very least, it's much quieter than it used to be. But when there's any load, like recording this at ridiculously low bitrate and stuff, apparently it thinks that that's reasonable to get out there. So I don't have any real issues with temperatures, but maybe that's because of the fans being in the way they are. I don't know. Either way, we are still experiencing some growing pains, and so you may hear stuff like that. I do intend to resolve the noise issues eventually when I get to the point where I can, when I can actually nail down the issues. Look, I probably have to flash my BIOS or something. So stay tuned for updates in that regard. But really, it's just been nice to have a new rig and really get everything set up. My first time using an SSD was earlier this month when I actually plugged mine in. So really cool. Interesting stuff. Wouldn't have expected it to be so much of a difference, but definitely fun. So, yeah, there you go. The last two things on this recap list are related to the brief return of Let's Plays, which were definitively not expected, I think, but in a way it was good that I had my new rig for that because, I decided to play some games that previously were unattainable for me in terms of actually recording. And I also ended up going into some content on the second channel for esports-focused stuff. I realized after doing that it was probably the wrong decision to try to find success, and I'll define success a little bit later, but to try to find success with esports content while having deleted my Twitter and Reddit accounts might have been a bit of a goofball move. I really don't want to be on those websites, and I do think that they are mind viruses, but I don't really know how to, again, find success with that kind of content. Like, I basically would need to somehow get enough of an audience that they can do that kind of shit for me, just by virtue of them posting it to those websites, because that is where the traffic comes from, mostly Reddit. But on Twitter is where I can like yell at people to get on the show or something, and DM them for interviews. And I don't have access to the interview guests, and I don't have or the subjects, I guess. I also don't have access to like the potential audience by posting to Reddit. So as much of bile comes up in my throat and stops me from being able to speak the English language because I just get so disgusted at the idea of posting on fucking Reddit, I'm not really sure there's an alternative. Because again, I would kind of need to like white knuckle through the process of doing that until there was sufficient audience to actually attempt to let them do it for me. And even then, I don't think anybody would actually do that. I think I would still have to be responsible for posting my own shit, because even the number one viewed guy and like all of the top people are still posting their shit manually. So I don't know. Maybe it just hasn't been tried, but man, it's something that I definitely want to. I was talking about reducing distractions. I was thinking about that lately, because I sometimes I'll check my email too much, or like check YouTube comments or whatever. And I already do that in a way where it's not particularly reasonable to do, in terms of I don't spend like hours on it, but even spending like more than a minute, or like checking it multiple times an hour or something is completely pointless. And, I've disabled a bunch of notifications and stuff on my phone so that doesn't distract me and like alert me to the fact that I should go check it. And just now I check it at dedicated times of the day, and that seems like a more reasonable approach. But the idea that I'd be adding more things that I would then have to regulate the usage of, is pretty goofy, and I would rather not have to do that. So the jury's still out on whether or not that stuff will take off. I think that I have the ability to provide a good kind of content, and I want to learn how to do interviews in that sense, and I think it would be an interesting craft to try to master. And I definitely want to represent stuff like custom maps in Counter-Strike, even though I'm not a crazy fan of the game in terms of like it's certainly not the best version of Counter-Strike that's out there, right? But it is the most popular, and as a result, it has the most attention to people. And like success to me when it comes to that kind of content for that game would just be like getting the word out to people and having them consider the points. And I can't really do that without sort of hawking the content of people, just chucking it at them and telling them to go watch it. So I don't like advertising, and I don't like self-promotion. I think it's gross, but I'm not really sure how else to get by in a world where everything else is like that. So maybe one of you guys will have some ideas. I don't know. Post them in the comments below. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So stay tuned on the second channel for some more content. All right, so let's actually get into the content plans for this month of September, now that I've recapped everything. I knew it was going to be a heavy recap, but I didn't know it was going to be almost 1337 seconds long. That was not exactly expected. But let's talk about Brood War stuff first. I do have plans for a final push for HYDRA. And what I mean by that is we've got 7 units that have to be added. There's 2 Protoss, 2 Zerg, 1 Terran, and 2 Zerg buildings. So we're looking at a very small number of units that need to be added. Unfortunately, that does mean that we need the 2-byte Flingy extender, which is its own programming-related challenge. And of course, we still need plenty of other features added and stuff on an engine level. But as far as adding content to HYDRA, that's pretty much all we need. Add AI support, figure out what else we're going to be doing, continue to tweak the AI. But a lot of stuff is coming down to just polishing audio visuals, making like birth animations for the new Zerg units and stuff, slapping together some sorts of all sorts of different things. And to me, this is something that can be done probably before the halfway point of this month, but certainly it's a conservative estimate that by the end of September, HYDRA will be taken care of in that respect, and it will just be in its balancing and post-production, like what would you call it? I guess polishing phase, where I'm just sanding off the rough edges, getting everything closer to a final state. This is important for Deliverance because Deliverance is built on the HYDRA game state. So ideally, I would be able to just take anything that I do for HYDRA and just like add it, copy and paste it into Deliverance without worrying about like overwriting certain files or doing anything like that. So I'm hoping that ends up being the case, because it would be really annoying to have to constantly edit certain things, basically. And if I don't have to do that, that's great. So obviously the second hand of the Brood War plans there, Deliverance itself, mostly map and AI production. We don't really have to worry about the mod itself too much, because once HYDRA is finalized, we've actually already added a few new units to Deliverance, and they're in a position where they're fully functional, and they don't even really require that much in terms of like positional gameplay or anything. So the AI using them is not really that significantly important. And even if the AI doesn't use them, or if like we're testing using HYDRA instead of the Deliverance mod, we're still able to test the rough AI performance, approximate basic changes to the map itself, actually put maps through their paces, put the AI through its paces, and get to the point where we can say, like, learn something useful and actionable from that engagement. And then after that, we can worry about like adding in the new units, modifying the AI, that sort of thing. And that's it for Brood War plans, but it's certainly, just because there's only 2 entries here doesn't mean that that's not a lot of work. It's mostly Deliverance related stuff, but it's still quite a lot of work. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more updates for HYDRA, I guess. Video plans, on the other hand, have quite a bit more going on there. There's the Batman playthrough I've been doing, burning every plant in Gotham. One by one, we're getting there, filling all of those fucking progress bars. So that's not really an epic playthrough in terms of gameplay, but there are some hilarious one-liners, and as the gameplay progresses, the quote-unquote gameplay progresses, I am descending further into madness flame knife style. So that is actually quite a long game if you're playing it the way that I am. So expect a lot of flame knife style videos where I'm just losing my fucking mind and laughing half the time, especially when the game continues to bug out the way it does. So stay tuned for that. That's pretty epic. I've also got plans for Dead Space 2 playthrough at some point. That'll be after Arkham Knight. And that will probably be the last of the game LPs that I run until after Full Toilet is over in October, or it will be the 3rd of November when it finishes. So at some point in November, I'll pick back up the LPs. I'll probably start with something related to like Age of Empires. Probably I'll start streaming that or something. And then maybe I'll still be doing custom campaign playthroughs between now and then. I still haven't decided on that, but like I was saying, I'd like to reduce distractions generally. And these video plans are, mostly to finalize some things that I've been trying to run for a while, promising that I would run for a while, like Dead Space 2, and some custom campaigns that I'll get into in a sec. And then there's some more stuff, I've been kicking cans down the road for a while, and it's nice to actually get rid of them in some capacity or another. So that's basically where we're at. The custom campaign playthroughs I've got planned are Inconsummate and Huncraft. Obviously, Inconsummate is my own campaign. I'll be running that on an offline basis. Same for Huncraft, if I can even get it working. That is pretty much, Huncraft is the last notable release that I have not run, I'm pretty sure, in terms of custom content. If I'm not able to get it working for whatever reason, it does require like a whole different installation of StarCraft, and probably bunch of other really complicated steps that I'm going to have to research, because it had its own dedicated installer and stuff, and some guy translated it to English. So I think there will be Hungarian voice acting, but you'll just have to read very heavily. I don't remember if there even is voice acting, honestly, but I assume there is. So that will probably be a fucking weird experience, but it is a notable one, and it's one that I would like to immortalize in some capacity by actually doing a playthrough of. So hopefully we can get that done in a relatively short order, and that will be something that I end up smashing around. And yeah, I guess that's that for now. So the second channel content is mostly focused around esports related stuff, specifically right now for CSGO. I may branch out into other esports at some other point later on in the future, depending on what kind of guests I can get on for interviews and stuff. But I do have plans for more CSGO map analysis videos, which is a bit more like solo work, obviously. It's just me looking at other maps and walking around them and talking about my thoughts on them. And otherwise, we've got a bunch of different small ideas that are like I've had the idea for like a esports related talk show, because I think I can provide commentary that nobody else is considering, or very few other people in the mainstream like esports talk show world are considering. But in order to really do that, I would need to find somebody who would be interested in doing it with me, and that way it could be like a 2-man show or something, and that would probably be a live thing. So still haven't really figured out what's going on with that, but time will tell. In the future, of course, the engine is looming on the horizon, and that is something that we'll be very excited to smack ourselves silly with. I was going to say sink our teeth into, but I unfortunately said smack instead. So, you know, sometimes you got to just smack shit instead of sinking shit. So that'll be the engine. We'll be smacking it. And that's pretty much the only main future thing that I have. I obviously eventually will have to return. I think once Full Toilet is over, I'll have a bit more time to do things like the video essays that I've been promising for literally a year now, as well as the there was that highlight video. I don't really know what I want to do with the highlight video, though. At first it was just going to be a clip compilation, as this like 3-hour long special of just me like random shit from my videos. I don't know if that's reasonable though. So for one, I mean, it would involve downloading the already processed YouTube shit, unfortunately, so that I could actually use that to make the video. But for another, I just don't know how reasonable it is. So we'll have to figure that out. Like, I don't even know if that's content that people would be interested in. So I guess you guys will just have to vote with your comments, dude. And otherwise, I mean, that's something that I'll get into after Full Toilet is over. So sometime in November. So there you go. That's the channel map for September. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it confused. We're in September now. I can't believe it's already September, but here we are. And yeah, check us out on Instagram, I guess. Bye.